All right, it's going. This is an interview between Eva Ellis McCarty and Byron Hartzler, and today is February 24th, 2017. Okay, so you were saying...
Well, where the swimming pool is at Grove Center, we lived up the hill from that.
Where the Children's Museum is at?
Where the Children's Museum is. And we used to go, there was a big spring down there, and Mr. Sievers backed up and he had a duck pond there. And we would go down there and he had a paddle boat, and we would paddle around in the lake.
Was Mr. Sievers the one that owned that lake?
He owned the lake, yes.
And that's the lake that became the public swimming pool?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I actually have a picture of that.
I've got one somewhere here.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to carry water from the spring all the way up the hill.
Was that the spring on Mr. Sievers' property?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking that maybe it's still there.
The spring?
The spring. Because isn't there a little house behind the pool now?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
I'm thinking that it is. Yeah, Mr. Sievers, well, Judge Sievers, I always called him Judge Sievers.
Was he an actual judge?
He was an actual judge,
okay.
Yes. And his name, I don't know what the T stood for, but the L was for Lawrence. And he moved to Clinton. And if you're going to Clinton now, and you get down to Papa John's Pizza, if you will look behind that, there's a big 2-story white house. And that's where he moved to.
Okay. So he was one of the ones that had to move whenever the government came in and took it out. Okay.
And his house was straight across from the Robertsville Methodist Church.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because that's really close.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you remember anybody else that went to the Robertsville Methodist Church?
Yes, Frank and Sophie Atkins.
Yeah, we had those the other day.
And then Glenn and Ruth Irwin, Morris Irwin, and Glenn and Ruth had 2 sons, John Rice and David. And did I mention that Glenn had a brother, Morris, that went there? And I can't remember their grandfather. I keep thinking his name was John.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Do you remember what the actual building looked like?
The church?
Yeah.
It was a white church, and if I'm remembering right, it had a red roof on it, a tin roof.
Okay. The title that the Army Corps of Engineers gave it was the Southern Methodist Church. Was that the actual name, or was that a name that they gave it? Do you remember?
It's evidently a name they gave it, because I only knew it as Robertsville Methodist Church.
Okay. Because I had, I've got the photos of that, or I actually don't have the photos. The library has the photos of that church, so it actually shows, what it looked like. I've tried to contact the Holston Methodist Church, and because of what was happening in that time in history, there was actually a Northern Methodist Church and a Southern Methodist Church. So they don't know which branch that church belonged to. Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea, but if I was guessing, I'd say Southern.
Southern?
If I was guessing.
Do you know what kind of Baptist church the Robertsville Baptist Church was?
I went there, we moved to that area in 1935.
Okay.
I was 5 years old, and I remember we went there for a year or so, and for some reason my dad didn't care for it, I guess is the best way to put it, and we started going to Batley. And the only person that I can remember that they talked about that was a deacon and a Sunday school teacher was John Key. I don't remember him, but he owned the store, the Key store.
That was right there on 61 in Robertsville?
Right.
Yeah, I've got a picture of that too.
Yeah.
So, was one of his names like a middle name or a first name, William?
The nephew that took over the store for John, his name was William, but we called him Bill all the time.
Okay.
And he drove the school bus when we had to start school at Scarborough.
There was another guy that I met a couple months ago at the Oak Ridge Public Library that was telling about Mr. Key, and that he used to stop at that store. Do you remember stopping at that store?
Oh, we've shopped there.
Okay.
Yes, we did. I can remember just what it looks like on the inside.
What did it look
If
like?
you walk, well, it was small, the part where the groceries were, but he had a room in the back that he kept like feed and hardware stuff. But if you walked in the front door, and the one thing that I always remembered was the telephone hanging on the wall, and it was one of those you had to crank.
Okay. That's cool.
And I could just see it. Yeah, we were there a lot. And
Was there a post office there as well?
Well, it used, from what I've read and everything, they used to have like the elections there, you know, that was where they would go to vote. And I think other public meetings they would hold there.
That was just a short distance from the Methodist church, wasn't it?
Wasn't very far at all.
Okay.
And then, you know, Lockett's store was on the other side of, it was East Fork Valley that went between the Lockett store and the Key store.
Okay.
And there was always competition. Competition there. Because Miss Key, she would get mad if you went over to the Lockett's. But Lockett's had, you know, a better selections of things because they carried dry goods. You know, you could buy your shoes there, you could buy material there.
The Lockett store?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let's see, what, I can't remember his name. Her name was Lizzie.
The one that owned the
I think
Lockett store?
Bill and Lizzie Lockett.
Okay.
And they had two sons, Joe and Longus. Joe was in the same class as I was in school.
What else do you remember about the Key store?
I remember where the counter was. As you walked in the door, you looked straight ahead, and there was a big, long counter. And I remember the scales that he weighed this stuff on was sitting there. It was great big.
So was the feed back behind the counter then?
No, the feed was in another room.
Okay. Was the room to the right or left of the store?
Straight to the back.
Straight to the back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So did you have to walk to the side of the counter to get into
walk
it?
to the left of the counter and go
Left
in.
of the counter and go on back.
Mm-hmm.
So they had feed and what else in the back room?
I don't really remember. I just know it was big sacks of feed.
Was that for the cattle, for horses?
Cattle. And I think he carried seeds, you know, like corn and stuff to plant.
Okay.
Know, stuff like that.
Okay. And then in the Lockett store, you said they had shoes and other...
Oh, they had material, shoes, all different kinds of, I'd call it dry goods stuff. You
Okay.
know. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, that really saved us a trip to Clinton. You know, Clinton was, well, Oliver Springs, I suppose, was closer, but they didn't have very much either. And of course, we had to go to Clinton to pay taxes. And I remember my dad and I walking all the way to Clinton and back.
Oh my.
Yes. And I remember when I got there, I would just stand there and I would look at all the tall buildings. And I thought, oh, where am I, you know? But we would walk all the way.
So you didn't have like a horse or a wagon?
Yeah,
or...
we had a wagon. Yeah.
But you would still walk?
But we walked. I remember walking one time. And I guess that was enough for me.
Do you know anything about Robert Collins, the guy that started Robertsville?
Wasn't he related to the Roberts? I don't know
I'm not
anything
sure.
about him. That was before my time.
Okay. So you don't know if he was a slave owner or not?
I heard he was.
Okay.
I heard he was.
Because it's my understanding that the slave market was right there at
Supposed to be where the pool is
where the
now.
pool is at. Yeah.
That's what we heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Did you hear about the murders that took place down there at Robertsville?
no. What kind of murders were they?
Well, you could really talk to Leo. I had the story because this fellow from Oak Ridge called and asked me if I knew where the Shar pit was. Well, I said, you're not talking about the sand pit, are you? And because that's what we called it.
You said shark pit?
Shar, C-H-A-R.
Shar pit. Okay.
Shar pit.
Okay. What's the shar mean?
It's a type of rock, but we called it sand because it was like fine gravel. In fact, they used it to pave some of the back roads with it.
So they actually had paving?
61 was paved, but the rest of the roads were gravel.
Oh, okay.
And the road to our house was dirt.
Okay. I didn't realize they actually had paving back then.
And the road that went to our house was in front of the Key store. We
Right.
went up the hill.
Okay. So if you were coming out of the Key store, would you go straight across?
No, you would, let's see, you'd come out of the store, you would go left, probably about 10 or 15 feet, and then turn right up the hill.
Okay.
If you go up Highland Avenue, when you get to West Outer Drive, that's where our house sit.
Right at the corner of Highland and West Outer?
Right across, if you go across Outer, that would be our house, where our house sit.
Okay, so as soon as Highland hits Outer Drive,
That's where our house
was it on the other side of Outer Drive?
On the other side.
Do you still have a picture of your house?
I got a picture.
Can I see it?
It's the one that they made, whoever did all the pictures.
Okay.